All right, hey, so real quick, looking at some of these concepts of training, concepts of fitness, because when we look at the difference between working out and the difference between training, I think a lot of people get those two words mixed up a little bit. So a lot of times when we look at working out, a lot of times we see people come into a gym setting and they just don't do something structured, right? They just come into quote unquote work out, right? They try to just do work, and sometimes it becomes mindless. When we look at training, training is specific. It's based on adaptations, it's based on end goals, right? And especially when we look at going from working out and having mindless work done, we need to look at then training and how can we do that, right? Because like I said, it's based on an end goal, so we have to understand adaptations, right? And so there's a couple different main adaptations that we can really target, that we can really work towards, that are gonna be able to help you out long term in order to create sustainable change and then sustainable training plans, right? So when we look at general physical qualities that we do, right? So we have speed, we have speed strength, we have power, strength, speed, and then absolute strength, right? So those are really our 5 main adaptations we can go, at least from a muscle strength standpoint. When we look at speed, right, we're looking at the ability to move fast. We're looking at the ability to put out a little bit of force, but really trying to create maximum velocities and rate of force development in muscle contractions. When we look at speed strength, obviously it's producing more force, but still being able to do it rapidly, right? So having a high amount of output. Then we look at power, right? So power is really the optimization, highest amount of force at the highest velocity possible. That's what we consider like optimal power, okay? And there's a force velocity curve. So if we had force vertically and we had velocity here on an x-axis, the higher the force, generally the slower the velocity, right? Then we get into strength speed, so being able to produce force and kind of do it quickly. Then we get to absolute strength, which is just the ability to express force through a range of motion. So when we're looking at adaptations, when we're looking at trying to create training plans, we need to understand what is the adaptation we're trying to go through. A great example is, some of the athletes that I've gotten to work with, some of them are very, very strong and they're very, very good at producing force, but the biggest thing that they lack is being able to produce force quickly. They lack strength speed, or they lack speed strength and the ability to move at those different rates, right? If we're looking at athletes, especially those that play in field sports, football, American football has kind of been the revolutionizer of strength and conditioning. Well, if we look at different sports, we need to understand that power is king, right? Speed is king. So being able to create a really fast rate of force development and being able to lean a little bit more on the velocity side of that force velocity curve, we need to be able to train it in those ranges, right? So that means spending time moving fast. That means spending time in those higher velocity ranges, and it means having a force ability, right? And so that's where we kind of have to wave and undulate or periodize out our training and our adaptations, is we need to have an ability to produce force that is going to allow us to sit there and translate that to move more weight and produce more force, and then adapt to moving it faster, right? So when we're looking at training, when we're looking at working out, we need to understand what is the end goal, because then we need to understand what are the muscle qualities that we need to express. So we need to express speed, we need to express speed strength, we need to express power, do we need to express strength speed, or do we need to express absolute strength or absolute force, right? Once we can understand that these are the different really muscle adaptations that we have, at least from a force perspective, then we can start to plan these out more accordingly based on what somebody's needs are, or based on what the end goal is. So those are just like a different breakdown, right? So if we understand those, then we can start to plan training a little bit more appropriately. We stop doing mindless work by just coming in and working out, and then we get more effect, more bang for our buck, and then better outcomes.